From the heartbreaking departure of Henry Cavill that fans still can't get over, to the horrors that drove Ruby Rose off the sets of Batwoman, here are some of the most controversial reasons actors left their shows. And I've gotta start with Henry Cavill leaving The Witcher. This was definitely one that shook the whole world. Many people consider Cavill's portrayal of Geralt to be one of the absolute highlights of the series. I mean, the guy nailed it. Now, Cavill actually signed on for Season 3 and was committed to the project. He talked about his love for The Witcher, both the games and the books, time and time again, and said that playing Geralt was like fulfilling his childhood and adult life fantasies. So you can imagine how shook everyone was when they heard that Henry would no longer be a part of the show beyond Season 3. Cavill was open to continuing as Geralt, as long as they kept telling great stories that honored the original author's work. He wanted to stay as true to the books as possible. But there'd been some behind-the-scenes tension. Cavill wanted the show to stay faithful to the books. He wanted to accurately represent the character of Geralt and give him more dialogue. Now, even one of the writers from The Witcher, Beau DeMaio, claimed that there were writers on the show who either didn't like or even mocked the books and games. That wasn't the only reason why he left the role, though. He was also trying to focus mainly on his Man of Steel role, although that was before James Gunn decided he wanted a new and younger Superman. And before we knew it, Henry Cavill lost two of his most major roles. That's basically how Gina Carano lost her Mandalorian role too. In February of 2021, she hopped on social media and made a comparison that stirred up a whole lot of controversy. You see, Carano decided to compare hating someone for their political views to Nazism. Yeah, and as you can imagine, fans and critics didn't take too kindly to it. They felt that she was basically saying that being a modern conservative is somehow equivalent to being a Jew during the Holocaust. Yikes. Well, as you can probably guess, this didn't sit well with Disney and Lucasfilm, the people behind The Mandalorian. They promptly showed Carano the door, not just from the show, but from all future Disney and Star Wars projects. Carano always had positive things to say about the company before she was kicked out, but things took a turn when it came to Disney. She's been quite critical of them ever since her firing, which does make sense. What doesn't make any sense at all, though, is the way that Charlie Sheen, from 2.5 Men, left out of nowhere. Now this one is etched in the memory of every fan out there. I mean, Sheen's departure from the show in Season 8 was a real shocker. Before all the drama unfolded, Sheen had actually been in rehab, and the whole world seemed to know about it. That's why production for Season 8 had to hit the brakes and take an indefinite hiatus. Now, during this unplanned break, Sheen decided to go on Alex Jones's radio show and let loose. He went on a rant, targeting his boss, producer, and head writer, Chuck Lorre. And boy did he have some choice words to say. Well, as you can imagine, Warner Bros. TV wasn't too thrilled about Sheen's behavior. They promptly showed him the exit door and fired him from 2.5 Men. But instead of fading into the background, the show decided to reboot itself. They introduced Ashton Kutcher's character, Walden Schmidt, to fill the void left by Sheen's departure. But the Sheen-Lorre feud didn't just end there. Both parties continued to take jabs at each other in public. It was the same for Christopher Eccleston from Doctor Who. Now, Eccleston's portrayal set the bar high for the actors who followed him. And for many fans, he remains their favorite version of the beloved character. But when Eccleston decided to bid farewell to Doctor Who after just one season, it was a bit of a bummer for the fans who had grown attached to his Doctor. Now, there wasn't an immediate controversy surrounding Eccleston's departure. It was all pretty hush-hush at first. But later on, he opened up about the real reason behind his exit. Apparently, his relationship with showrunner Russell T Davies went downhill, and the two simply couldn't see eye to eye. Eccleston even went on to claim that the BBC blacklisted him after his time on Doctor Who. That's a pretty bold accusation, and it seems like this alleged blacklist has kept him at arm's length from the franchise in the years that followed. Well, at least his past didn't come back to haunt him. Can't say the same about Ralph Dibny, aka Elongated Man. Now, I gotta admit, he didn't exactly win over the hearts of everyone, whether it was in the comics or the small screen in The Flash. For some folks, he was just a lackluster character that didn't quite hit the mark. But despite the mixed reception, Hartley Sawyer, the actor playing Elongated Man, was actually promoted to a series regular in 2018. Yeah, they made him a regular cast member. But Sawyer's time in the spotlight was short-lived. Why? Well, it turns out that some of his past tweets came back to haunt him. And trust me, they weren't pretty. I'm talking about offensive, misogynistic, and racist tweets that resurfaced. Yikes. You see, these tweets were written a few years before his stint on The Flash, and they joked about things like assault, homophobia, and racial issues in America. Needless to say, that didn't sit well with the higher-ups. They swiftly made the decision to fire Sawyer from The Flash and write his character off the show. But it's not that easy for everyone. It especially wasn't for the House of Cards, when Kevin Spacey had to go. His portrayal of Underwood truly put Netflix on the map. For 5 seasons, we watched this character maneuver through the treacherous world of politics, clawing his way up until he finally reached his ultimate goal of becoming president. It was quite the ride. But just as Underwood resigned from the political stage, Kevin Spacey himself exited the show in a much more permanent manner. You see, he was fired from House of Cards. And not just from that, but almost every other production he was involved in. The reason? Well, several men came forward with allegations of misconduct against him. Now, House of Cards tried to soldier on without its leading man. They attempted to continue for one more season. But let's be honest, Spacey's presence loomed over the show like a dark cloud. It was hard to escape the shadow he left behind. And in some ways, he held the season back from reaching its full potential. The misconduct allegations against Kevin Spacey not only led to his departure from House of Cards, but it also affected the overall direction and reception of the show's final season. Another time an actor's reputation got the best of their career was definitely the time Isaiah Washington left Grey's Anatomy. Now, he portrayed the skilled cardiothoracic surgeon Preston Burke for the first 3 seasons. But his journey on the show took an unexpected turn. Rumors started swirling about Washington using a homophobic slur, and that spelled trouble for his role on Grey's. It was said that the slur was directed at T.R. Knight during an argument with Patrick Dempsey. And you know how rumors spread like wildfire in the entertainment industry. Now, in the aftermath, Washington did offer an apology for his actions. But the controversy didn't just fade away. It continued to linger in the air. In fact, at the 2007 Golden Globes, he found himself making insensitive and homophobic comments once again, during a red carpet interview. Not the best move. T.R. Knight, who was involved in the initial incident, didn't stay quiet either. He claimed that everyone on the set had heard Washington using the derogatory term, despite Washington denying it later on. In the end, it was ABC who made the call. They decided not to renew Washington's contract, which meant his character, Dr. Burke, had to bid farewell to Grey's Anatomy. It was a firm decision, a consequence of his actions and the impact they had on the show and the people involved. Ruby Rose as Batwoman. Rose stepped into the shoes of Kate Kane, the original protagonist, and graced our screens for a single season. But the story behind Rose's departure turned out to be more controversial than initially thought. At first, it seemed like a mutual parting of ways. But the truth later emerged that Rose was actually fired from Batwoman. And guess what? Both Rose and Warner Brothers confirmed it. In a series of Instagram posts, Rose exposed the not-so-rosy, pun intended, work conditions on the Batwoman set. They claimed it was a toxic and dangerous environment. According to Rose, not only did they sustain multiple injuries, but others did as well during their time on the show. That's definitely not the kind of behind-the-scenes action we like to hear about. Rose also shed light on the fact that cast members were forced to return to work even after surgery. And to make matters worse, they described the crew of producers and showrunners as unprofessional. Yikes. Warner Brothers TV came forward and vehemently denied these allegations. They had a different story to tell, my friend, but the damage was done. The behind-the-scenes drama had taken its toll, causing Batwoman to suffer immensely. So, from the horrors that drove Ruby Rose off the sets of Batwoman, to the heartbreaking departure of Henry Cavill that fans still can't come to terms with, those were some of the most controversial reasons actors left their shows.